So thanks, guys, for your patience. And I want Miss Allison to, oh, I'm so glad you're here, Miss Allison. We have a big crowd this morning. So today, boys and girls, we're going to learn all about Egypt. And Miss Allison, I think that you really need to see this. So as you know, I have been to Egypt as well. And when I was there, I bought myself a perfect galabea. And I wear it every time we do an Egypt session at Connected North. So this is my galabea from Egypt, and has, I know that it's sparkly and wonderful, and I love it. So I just wanted to share that with the boys and girls. So over to you, Miss Allison. Can't hear you.
Now.
Perfect.
Okay, great. Sorry, guys. I'm just trying to take use of all of this really, really fun information. This is kind of a new form of learning for myself. So, hi, everybody. My name is Miss Allison. I am beaming in live from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So just like you, I have actually been at home working as well. So if you hear anything in the background, just so you know, that is my daughter. So if there's any little guys out there, I am also, or any parents out there, hi, I am going to be, you might hear some of that. So I see already that people are excited to be talking about how we talk about noses and fun things like that and how they come out of mummies. So what I wanted to do first was just make sure you guys can see my mummy behind me, is to tell you a little bit more about myself here. So Miss Katie and Miss Mally, if you see anything that I need to change, just let me know, okay? So I work right here at the University of Pennsylvania Museum of Archaeology and Anthropology. So we actually study all about human history. So that means that we have things from all over the globe, and in some cases, we are able to see objects that help us learn more and more about individuals, and we also have real-life human remains, like what you can see next to me here. So we are not in the business of unwrapping any mummies, but we are in the business of understanding humans that lived, past and present. So we actually have mummies that come from all over the world, but we're going to focus on the 13 that, yep, just like King Tut, I see some, I'll try to pick up any of the comments I see in the chat as well. So King Tut, we actually have someone that works at my museum, a real-life archaeologist, who's actually talked to individuals and studied with King Tut, saw those bones. Now, what we're going to do, first thing I always like to remind everyone is that Egypt is where we're talking about, okay? And we want to always make sure that everyone remembers that, oh, and don't worry, we're going to jump into why they wrapped mummies and how they got those organs out. Don't worry, but hang with me first. We're going to talk a little bit about how we're going to be seeing the world a little bit different. Now, so the first thing we always like to make sure is that we do have real life men and women who study Egypt, ancient Egypt, and those individuals are called Egyptologists. But we like to remind you, just like our amazing friend Mally just reminds you, that Egypt is still a modern area, okay? So we go to the continent of Africa every single solitary year. Our Egyptologists go back. I don't know about this year, but I'll be asking them about it. We do absolutely interact with different individuals that are living there, and they have similarities to how we're living. They have technology, they have that awesome fashion that you showed, and I'm not trying to hurt anybody, but like, guess what, guys? Nobody in Egypt today is mummifying, okay? Now, if you guys want to, at the end of our experience, I'll talk to you a little bit about a funeral home director I spoke with, who actually told me about how there are similarities between mummies and the funerary embalming that happens today. So we can save that for a little bit later. But when you go to Egypt today, you'll see lots of amazing, amazing pieces of architecture, callbacks to different ways that ancient Egypt is still infused in that modern city, but also connections to the culture that lives there today. You'll see lots about belief systems, right? And you can see that modern city in the back here. These are pictures also. Oh, somebody even went in 2017. And look, Ms. Malley, look, you even have someone here. You kind of have similar fashion, right? So this is an idea of how people maybe your age are going into school, right? Maybe a little differently now, but school. And then also the idea that just like today, they have some fun restaurants, and even though they have some really, really, really cool pyramids and ancient materials that you can see in the back, they're really, really similar to you and I. Now, what we're going to do, though, now that we know a little bit more about how people in Egypt are living today, what my goal is to help us kind of jump back in time. So what we're living all the way over on this side, 2020, okay? So, but ancient Egypt, when we're going to talk, what we're talking about today is all about mummies. Now, we're going to be specifically talking about how this idea of making mummies developed over time, okay? Now, what you can see behind me is a timeline, and trust me, I won't spend too much time on this for you guys. But what I do like to point out is that ancient Egypt, which you can see right here with the blue line, we're going to talk about 3,270 years of history. So we're going to jump back to the very, very start of their civilization, which we document as 3,300 BCE. And we're going to talk about how mummies were kind of being made and around through that time. Now, that means we're going to jump back, and just to have some help, I know you guys are already so wonderful, but just for some quick help, let's use our chat box here to get interactive. How about all of my friends, can you name for me what, because guess what, not just the location, but big geographical features, they also stay the same when we're jumping back into time? Can you tell me, all of my friends in the chat box, what is this green-blue line running down the middle of my map here? I'll move my head a little bit. The Nile. Oh, I love these caps locks too. The Nile River. I love it. You guys are so good. Okay, no worries. So for those that don't know, I love how many that do know, absolutely. I love that we're getting lots of answers in our chat box. For those of you that may not have learned this just yet, what this green-blue line represents is the Nile River. Now, when we look to ancient Egypt, this is the idea of their major water source. Now, remember, what's surrounding all of ancient Egyptians is this tan color, the desert, right? Now, this river source that runs right through the middle of the desert is their main form, not just of being able to kind of get the liquids that they would need to kind of create their drinks. This is going to actually be a place where they know they can grow their crops all the way up to harvest so that they can feed lots of people. This is also going to be a place where you can see, if you look really, 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 really closely, you can see names of cities and villages. This is kind of like their main form of travel, how most people get from place to place because of that desert. Now, if we all wanted to imagine we are in the desert, what are some really, really good descriptive words we could use to describe the desert environment? Can you guys put that into the chat box? And then for those of you who may not know yet, don't worry, we'll talk about it together. Ooh, I have hot. I'm getting lots of hot. Ooh, I love that word, sandy. Dry, hot, dry, humid in some cases, sunny, extremely sunny, guys. So sunny that the hat is an important tool of that archaeologist. Sand, sandy, awesome. Deserted, I would agree. It's like almost, it's just so vastly open. Okay, boiling. Okay, talking about that it might even be scorching, and in some cases we might feel like it's humid. Maybe that's in the morning, or if it's getting toward the dark, kind of toward the end of the day, right? Now, you guys, these are all such wonderful examples. So just to cap up everything I'm seeing in this chat box, the best way to kind of think about the desert is arid. Now, arid is a word that means hot and dry together. So what I always like to say is that basically the best way to think about it is when people go to Egypt to dig today, guess what, guys? They actually cannot, they actually are not able to make sure that they work through the day. It's actually so hot at certain parts of the day that when the sun gets to the highest point in the sky, it's just too hard to work. So a lot of the digging happens really, really early in the day, like before the sun comes up. So that it's actually can even get 140 degrees. So it's really, really, really hot there. Okay, sorry about that, everybody. I had to quickly switch a camera, and now all I have to do is change my screen so that you guys can check it out. I might have gone a little bit red, but can you guys let me know? Can you see my PowerPoint with ancient Egypt on there?
Yes, we can.
Okay, wonderful. So I'm back down here. Hi, everybody. I just want to make sure I can see everybody.
Now, Allison, we can just see your slideshow, not you.
Okay.
We can see you, you're small, but yeah, just so you know.
Perfect. Okay, wonderful. So I just want to make sure that I'm all set up. Sorry, guys, this is a new digital platform for me too, so I'm just trying to get all of my bearings and make sure that we can see each other. Okay, so what we were talking about, I wasn't going to leave you. What we were talking about here is ancient Egypt. So thanks so much for everybody that put in all of those really great chats. The idea of what the Nile shows us and all of that fun environment of the desert. So what we're going to be talking about without any further ado, right, is this idea that we are going to be talking specifically about the ancient Egyptian afterlife. Now, one thing I always want to remind you guys is that ancient Egypt ancient Egyptians are very similar to you and I. What that really means is that wake up every single day. They have responsibilities, they have families, they have friends, and they even have to go to school in some cases, okay? Now, can I just see in the chat box, what are some examples, what have you guys already talked about maybe in relationship to ancient Egyptian afterlife? Katie, could you let me know where, as I'm sharing screen, my chat box has disappeared?
Okay. But I'll read it. I'll read them to you. That there's a test. Brody said that there's a test before you reach heaven. That says there's false doors. The higher your class, the better your afterlife. Lauren says she thinks.
Yeah. Okay. Wonderful.
You can go hover over your screen and press the little chat bubble.
When I'm sharing my screen. Oh, there it is, guys. Okay. Ms. Allison is ready now. Okay, great. Thank you guys so much. See how teachers have to work together just like parents and students? Okay, everybody.
If you go to the afterlife.
Yes, there is a test that goes to the afterlife. I like that a lot of people don't know too much. That if somebody, I see also that someone is talking about Anubis. This is absolutely correct. And that if somebody is good, they will let you into a good place. If you were bad, a monster with a crocodile head might even eat that person's heart. Oh my goodness, so many different myths. And then we also talk about the idea of your heart getting wings. Okay, so I love all of these great responses for those that were kind of chatting back and forth with us. And for those that don't know too much, I'm just going to kind of expand on these really, really wonderful views. And yes, in fact, they did wrap some animals. Some you're going to see later. Oh, and Evan, I love that you just called out Ba and Ka. We may have met before. They're my favorite spirits. So let me tell you guys a little bit more about this afterlife. So you're absolutely 100% correct. What you guys see here on the screen is a picture, an image from what's called the Book of the Dead. That's a primary source that was actually written by the ancient Egyptians. Now, this is kind of like a good resource for what's called a mummy maker, the person that's in charge, the priest that's in charge of making mummies. Now, the thing that makes it, what we're really focusing on here is the idea that ancient Egyptians had a belief system. That's all the afterlife was a set of beliefs, okay? Now, what they thought was in this afterlife, just like many of you guys were talking about, they thought that this afterlife was like the best place they could ever be. They basically thought it was like the best day they ever had when living on Earth. So if you guys all take a minute, imagine the best day you ever had. Think about the weather, think about who might have been with you, think about different opportunities of like the activities, the food, the people that surrounded you. These are all types of things that ancient Egyptians believed would be with you in this afterlife. Now, they were really smart because they woke up every single day preparing. They thought that you not only had to be a good people, you also had to make sure that you honored your 13 gods and goddesses, and they believed everything you did when living on Earth was tracked on your heart. Now, like our friend said in the chat box, right, that is their way of determining kind of the weight of how you lived on Earth. What that means is they thought that your heart, what they referred to as your soul, was something that you would ultimately, something that would kind of track all of your good and bad deeds. Now, that help, we'll get back to kind of that test that we talked about a little bit later. But what's really interesting about this idea is that it helps us know ancient Egyptians, they were not just thinking about gods and goddesses. Ancient Egyptians actually had a lot of beliefs in spirits. So my friend Evan, Evan did a great job calling out these two specific spirits, Ba and Ka, which you can see on top. You can see right here on screen. Now, what I always like to do is make sure that we kind of take a minute to talk about these two spirits because it tells us a little bit more about why mummification is so important. Now, ancient Egyptians, like we said, remember, think that there's this test that you have to pass to make sure you are worthy enough to get into this afterlife, right? Well, they think your heart that's tested is actually made up of 5 different spirits. 2 of the 5 spirits is what you see on your screen, Ka and Ba. Now, Ka and Ba, they have 2 roles. One, the Ka and Ba live with you to get you through the day when you're living on Earth. And the second role, guys, is really important. That is actually what helps Ka and Ba keep the mummy, the person that's moved to the afterlife, it helps them connect to the world of the living, like our friends and our families that we leave behind. Now, I want us to really, really understand what Ka and Ba does. So for anybody that's there, and if any of the parents are there and you want to take some pictures, I want to get our energy out. Ka is actually, when you're living on Earth, represents energy. So everybody, take your muscles, put your muscles up like you can see me in my little box down here. Take your muscles up, put them up, put your palms flattened forward, and as loud as you can, if you want to chat, put it in our chat box, you can too. Scream, Ka! As loud as you can, and then type it to me in that chat box. Scream that word, Ka! Oh my goodness! Look at all of this we have. Oh my goodness, I can hear those. I can hear you from here. You're shaking my background. So good. Oh my goodness, look at all of these caps locks. Get all that energy out. Now, here's the secret, right? Now, ancient Egyptians believed that right when a baby was born, they believed that the Ka spirit would enter the baby's body by taking their first breath. Once the Ka spirit entered their body, it stayed with you each day to give all of that awesome energy, which I can see in the chat box. So good job, guys. Now, what happened in the afterlife is ancient Egyptians thought Ka was restricted to the tomb, never, ever able to leave their eternal resting place, which happens to be this preserved body of the mummy. They think Ka can only leave the tomb if friends and family leave offerings for the mummy in front of what's called a false door. Now, the ancient Egyptians also think that Ka has a friend in all of this. This spirit's name is Ba, and that's basically, I won't make you guys do any crazy Ka, right? But Ba spirit is basically like our personalities. It's what makes each one of us unique, which is something that ancient Egyptians totally understood. Now, this, guys, is why this is super, super important, okay? Ancient Egyptians believe that Ba and Ka, am I still sharing? I just want to make sure.
Yeah, but it's on your Cisco screen.
Okay. Are you back on here?
Yep, right there. Yep.
Okay, great. So Ka and Ba, basically, guys, what they want to do is ancient Egyptians believe that the moment that the sun starts to set each night, the sun will start moving down, and that's when Ba and Ka, who leaves the tomb, can come back together and go to sleep right here in this eternal resting place, which happens to be the preserved body of a mummy. So our goal in talking about making mummies is to make sure that the body stays intact without changing the appearance too much, so that Ba and Ka, these two spirits, have this way of returning to an eternal resting place, okay? So ancient Egyptians basically developed this after they realized that in the desert, at the very beginning of their civilization, ancient Egyptians basically understand that the body in the desert is made of water. Most of our body is made of water. In the chat box, can we see, I see that we have lots of Ka and Bas, but I'm wondering if we were all in the desert, right? You guys told me it was going to be really hot and really, really dry, okay? Can somebody tell me, if I had a glass of water in this desert environment, right? I took a sip of it, I put it in the sand dunes, and then I left it there all day. Who can tell me what would actually happen to the water in my glass if I forgot it and it left there and it was left all day? Okay, yes. Evaporation. Evaporation. So no more cause. We're looking for what would happen. It goes up. Call it evaporation. Very good. So the water gets so hot that eventually it turns into a gas. Now, guess what? At the beginning of this civilization, every single person is the same social class. They're all farmers, okay? Now, when someone passes away, friends and family take those individuals into the desert. They dig a small pit. They place the person that passed away into that pit, surrounded by objects of their daily life, okay? Now, what ends up happening is over time in that hot, dry environment, the body completely evaporates. Our body is more than 70% made of water. So this individual that you see here, and I am going to ask everybody, I know that this is a fun lesson, but this is actually an individual that lived thousands of years ago. So I'm going to make sure, I just want to remind everybody to keep our comments super, super appropriate, which you guys are already doing, but I just try to keep respect for my ancient friends here. Now, this individual is actually a female. She lived in 3,300 BCE. So that's the beginning of the civilization. And guess what? She lived before there was any pharaohs, before they had any type of social rule, any type of class system. Now, what's interesting is she was about 34 years old at the age of her death, which is actually a pretty good age at that when we're thinking about this time period. It's not Cleopatra, unfortunately. Cleopatra, we'll show you the treatment Cleopatra gets. Now, instead, this individual was discovered, she was discovered about 5,000 years after her passing by our archaeologists. And guess what? Nature preserved her, removed all of the water to keep her intact so well that when our archaeologists discovered her 5,000 years after her death, she had a full set of hair attached to her body. Can you believe that? A full set of hair. Now, remember, though, we're talking, nope, the vase didn't contain water. Now, what is so interesting, though, okay, my friends, is that we have 3,000 years of history, right? People start gaining knowledge, power, and wealth until those pharaohs, those kings and queens, they come into play. I call them rulers. So how many of you can I see in my chat box? How many of you would be interested in having a shallow pit in the sand as your eternal resting place if you were a big ruler, if you were all ancient pharaohs? Anybody? Ooh, somebody says no way. Someone says me. Okay, so we have some modest friends here. Most pharaohs weren't super modest. Many people are saying, no, I don't know, maybe me. Well, I won't lie to you. Many people, guys, have the same feelings. We want something more fancy. We want a little glitz, a little glamour, something a little bit more Kardashian, right? We want to make sure that we want to make sure that we can bring as much with us to the afterlife. We want our names remembered. We want to be as fancy. I see fancy. I see bling. I see people telling us that they would want a lot of what those ancient rulers want, right? Now, here's the thing. These tombs, these pyramids that we might be familiar with, they absolutely work. We know a lot about ancient Egyptian pharaohs by what's been discovered in these tombs. But get this, when we go inside, we actually see how these tombs cause a problem for mummification. Remember, what our goal is to make sure we keep the body fully intact. We want to dry it out so it stays preserved forever. Now, here's the thing. When you step inside these stone structures, that's when we start to see the environment change. Some of you guys at the very beginning of our lesson were saying that maybe this is something that could be similar to humid, right? It might be humid in the desert. Well, that humidity really comes in when you go inside the tomb. Now, what you guys see here are pictures of a real life behind the scenes views of what it looks like inside the tomb of a mummy. Now, right here is the foot of the mummy door. So I actually find this a really big privilege, guys, because not many people get to see these views. So I'm really excited to share them with you. And then right here, what we see here is an example of how the water gets trapped, okay? So what that means is we're in trouble. We are not able to preserve our pharaohs, and instead what we want to make sure that our pharaohs are remembered and preserved for eternity. We need their Ba and Ka to remember them. So what we're going to go through today, my friends, is what's called artificial mummification. Now that doesn't mean I have fake mummies, this word artificial. What it really means is that the mummies we're going to be talking about today, they are made by humans, okay? Now, my friend right here is a mummy maker, okay? Now, a mummy maker, can anyone tell me, describe this figure right here? What are some of the things you see on this figure right here, which is the ancient embalmer, called a mummy maker or a priest? Okay, so I see that there's a cloak, a leopard, maybe even a jaguar, cheetah clothes I see. Okay, so you guys are doing fur. You guys are doing really well. So this is absolutely what indicates a real life cheetah fur. It would be kind of like a pelt, so really, really good eyes. I see that there's a gold head chain, good eyes. There's a handband thingy. You see I see a brain puller outer, sandals, leopard skin, more fur. Guys, awesome. So I'm going to ask us to stop there. Those are awesome observations. We do, in fact, see that we have our cheetah pelt here. That would be a full cheetah. My cheetah pelt, unfortunately, is with my friend, Mr. Penn, who you see here, and we'll talk about him in a second. And then also we saw that our hair would be in a certain way, so embalmers would wear jewelry and their hair in a special way. And we also see some tools. You guys just did an awesome job calling out those tools. I like that you called it the brain puller outer thingy, and don't worry, guys, this is when our hands get dirty, so I'll tell you all about the official names, or the names we use today. Now, typically, and Miss Mally can tell you, I usually have my best friend here with me. His name is Mr. Penn. You can see him here. Mr. Penn, unfortunately, I'm not allowed to bring him home with me. He's still at my museum. I like that somebody has short hair and they said they can pull off the look of the mummy maker. So I'd like to see a picture if you're willing to share. So Mr. Penn, who you see right here, he's at home, which is the museum. Thankfully, he is a dummy from Hollywood. He and I hang out all the time, but he lets me take pictures of him through our lesson. So I'm going to use some pictures of him. And I'm going to show you guys, since you're my special group and I love meeting with all of you, I'm going to show you how us in archaeology kind of make sure we understand these ancient methods through experiments. So I have a friend who is named Miss Emily. Miss Emily loves doing science experiments and she lets me join in with her. So since Mr. Penn isn't here with me, we decided to bring in our friend. His name is Harold, and he is a fish. Now, Harold, okay, he is a fish, and we mummified him. We took a small amount of time, 2 months, to mummify Harold, and I'm going to show you what we did with Harold, which is part of experimental archaeology, and what I typically do or simulate with Mr. Penn. Does that sound good? Miss Melly and Miss Katie, do you guys want to take a minute for questions, or are you okay if we move forward?
Yeah, I think we should take like 2 minutes for questions because we need to be finished at 11:55.
Perfect.
So does anyone have any questions for Allison up until this point? I know that you all have so many awesome ideas. What type of fish is that?
So this here is a fish from our Reading Terminal Market, and I believe it's a grouper, but I'll confirm. Sorry, Harold and I became friends, so I just started calling him Harold.
Oh, okay. Why did they start?
Can you ask that one more time?
Oh, Loren wants to know why they wrap the mummies.
Great question. So we're going to talk about why they wrap them up, but ultimately it's kind of a form of protection in two different ways. So the wrapping becomes a protection because of how much of what we need to do in removing that the water from the body. It gets really fragile. So you'll see that happen with our
Ooh, that's noise.
Sorry, Allison, I'm not sure what happened. I just did Nally.
Don't worry.
Sounds like someone's under the ocean.
Somebody's under the ocean, maybe a little bit. Ooh.
Oh, hey. And what's that sound? We're not sure what that sound is. Yeah, maybe this is the curse of King Tut.
Right, the mummies don't always like us looking in. Also, guys, I would always like to say that all of us are using so much internet that sometimes things get a little bit crazy. But you guys have been so awesome and active. I'm super excited. So I'm going to actually kind of move quickly through this next part so that we can make sure to have at least 3 more minutes or 5 more minutes of questions. Does that sound good, Katie and Mally?
Sounds awesome.
Sounds perfect.
Okay, great. And don't worry, guys. I will tell you. We had a question about do mummies come to life. I will let you know. Mummies do not come to life. I've been in the museum many, many a night, and they didn't come to life, I promise. They lived long ago. And then I also saw a question really quickly about what their responsibilities were. That's a great question, Lily. So the responsibilities would be different for each person based on their class. So the idea would be every day everybody would have the responsibility of waking up and being good to their community, their family, and their friends. And then you also would have this opportunity to have responsibilities that related to your jobs. And in some cases, that would be education, like learning how to make a mummy, like our priest here. And in some cases, that would be something really important like farming, making sure you have the ability to grow the food. It's a really, really good question. Okay, so we're going to talk about making a mummy. We're going to remember Mr. Penn and Harold the fish. They're going to help us out a lot. And we are all going to take the role of a mummy maker. Now, what I like to say is the very first question I have to ask you is, the goal of removing the water in the body means that more than half of our body is made up of water. So let's imagine that came up to like our shoulders. Now, where we find the most water in our body actually is located right here in the organs, okay, which are located from your top of your head to the very bottom of your waist. So who can tell me what organ do you think we need to remove first? It's not the bladder, but good suggestion. I have the heart, not the heart, not the lungs. Oh, Gabriella, you are the first one I saw, and Lauren, you just came in with it as well. You are absolutely talking about the brain, guys. So we got to get this pesky, watery brain right out of Mr. Penn's body or Harold the fish's body, okay? Now, how do we do this? Who wants to tell me? I think we had a couple different suggestions. How do you think we're going to get this brain out of the body? Not the ba. The ba is just a spirit. Oh, I have cut the head open. That's one suggestion. Up the nose is another. Use a saw. Okay, so lots of the mouth is a good suggestion. Cut the back of the head off. Okay. Now, really great suggestion. Oh, through the eye. That's the first time I've actually gotten that one. Now, here are a couple questions. Good job, guys. Now, here is the suggestion. Some of you guys are saying we should take this brain, we should break the skull to get access to the brain, right? Now, that's a good suggestion, and as an ancient mummy maker, it'd be real easy, right? I could just pick up a rock and smash that brain. But I can't do that. Why can't I break or saw open the skull? Can you guys use the chat box to tell me? Yes, Brody, awesome, and Evan. Okay, JT, I see too. And okay, awesome. You guys would break. We need to preserve the body. Ka and Ba need to remember that eternal resting place. You guys, so great. You are absolutely instead going to go up the nose using tools that were suggested. I love all of your responses. So we are going to have to keep that body intact, which is why we can't break open the face. Now, we are going to go through the nose, but get this, guys. Ancient Egyptians, they actually thought our brain was junk. They thought everything we know our brain does, they believed your heart is. Now, your brain, though, right, that means basically if my finger was super long and super skinny, I can't put it up my nose and touch my brain, right? Thankfully, we have two barriers to break through to get to this important organ. Now, the first barrier we're going to break through, guys, is one we can all feel on our face. So can everybody hold up one pointer finger, touch the middle of your nose. Now, that wiggly part you feel is cartilage, but if you gently press, what you're feeling is what's called your septum bone, okay? Now, I have to break Mr. Penn's septum bone because Harold the Fish didn't really have one. We have to break his septum bone with a very advanced form of technology, okay, guys? A stick. So first, what we're going to do is use that Ka spirit, and just like you see my friend Miss Ellen here, she's going to bring that stick back and slam it down to break Mr. Penn's septum bone right here, okay? Now, all of us, right, actually have to do a little bit more work now. We all have this skin in between our nose. That's going to help us out. We're going to pull that skin to the side to create about a quarter-size hole on Mr. Penn's face. And then we're going to put in a very special tool because the next place that we have to break through is actually a barrier that's a small bone. It sits right between our eyebrows, okay, guys? It's called your ethmoid bone. So your ethmoid bone, if you look at your thumbnail, it is about the length of your thumbnail, like a typical thumbnail. So it's about an inch in size, okay? Now, lots of great names suggested, brain taker outer thingy, all of these fun stuff. But what we call it, if we don't know the proper name, is actually, we refer to this as the tool we're going to use to pop right through this ethmoid bone. We call it a brain hook. So right here, you guys can see above my arrow, this is actually an example of a brain hook we have in our collection. It's a metal tool. What happens is you can see in this x-ray, which is the brain hook inserted through the nose of a mummy and an x-ray taken, which you can see right here, this picture in blue. So what we have here is that's our septum bone broken. This is us breaking through our barrier. And the coolest part, we now know our evidence, there's no brain there. This is pretty cool. Now, what we have here, though, is a problem. We had a question in the chat box, which is how big is your brain? Your brain, right, is about, let's say, the size of your fist. So the problem becomes if I take my brain hook, I can't put my brain hook through my nose and pull out Mr. Penn's full brain, right? It's a bazillion cells. It's even smaller than my fist, absolutely. But the one thing that it is completely connected. It's a solid mass. So what you actually have to do is do something really special to remove this brain from this nose, okay? So guys, I was thinking of you because I want to show you exactly how it comes out. That's a big question. I created a video. I have a brain mold, and I used a brain mold and created a jello brain for you guys to see the mummy maker move necessary to break up this brain to get it out of that quarter-size hole. So let's make sure my video works. Oh, that's Harold the Fish. Let's see, guys. All right, so this is the idea. This is it looks yummy, but I promise it's actually not as yummy as it looks. So what we do is we tap this brain, just to remind you guys, this is the consistency of our Jello brain is similar to ours. So it's like kind of wiggly and jiggly. Now what we do is we break through the middle of the ethmoid bone, and then we use a scramble motion. That same scramble motion you're going to see on baking shows like the Nailed It. If you're into baking cakes, if you guys like to spin up paint, this is the same type of motion that you're going to do. Exactly. And there you go. Jello absolutely does jiggle. So it is, I know, poor brain. But the thing is guys, guess what? We're done with this brain. This brain is junk, and we're going to throw it out, okay? So we are done. We have removed the brain, and we did actually take out the brain of Harold as well. He did not need as much spinning. I won't lie to you guys. So that was number 1. We've taken our brain out. And now step number 2 is evisceration. Now, I placed a big X over the brain because 1, we've taken that out, and 2, we're throwing it away. Now, evisceration, I know, Harold, the evisceration, right? We now need to remove a group of organs, the organs that live under our shoulders and above our waist. Now, there are 4 organs that we're going to look for, and we're going to look for to keep. We want to preserve these 4 organs. So can you guys really quickly tell me, what are some of those organs we want to keep that we're going to take out of the body, but we're going to keep? So I see lungs. I see that the heart, which definitely comes in handy. Lots of hearts. The pancreas, I see people suggesting the liver. The kidneys are a big one. The bladder is a big one. The stomach and the intestines. All right, I'm going to ask everybody to stop there. You guys did so well. We named those 4 important experiences. Now, if anyone's like me, hopefully you guys are playing quite quickly. We actually know that mummy makers used obsidian. So if you're a Minecrafter, hopefully you are. I am too. Maybe we met virtually before. Maybe some of you guys have gotten obsidian. Obsidian you can make in the game, and just like in the game, it was mined out and it was sharpened so that you can make a really fine cut. So we're not changing Mr. Penn, but we make a very small slit on his belly to get these organs out. Now, what we do for those that used the chat box, you are so right. We are absolutely taking out those intestines. We are also going to take out the liver. We're going to take out the lungs, and we are going to take out the stomach. Now, we know you guys sometimes have tests, so we call these the ILS organs. Intestines, liver, lungs, and stomach, ancient Egyptians believed would be preserved. They would be dried, just like the body, and they would be placed. So this is Mr. Penn's organs removed, Harold's organs removed, as you can see. Now, once they're taken out, we dry them out, and we place them in canopic jars. Now, these canopic jars have relationships with 4 gods that are brothers, and they're kind of seen as the protectors. Once all of these ILS organs are placed in the canopic jars, the heads that are in the shapes of the gods, they seal up, and they get placed in the tombs forever. But my work's not done, my friends. I not only would probably have a little bit more, because Mr. Penn, he put a couple canopic jars in his place. I'm not done eviscerating. I not only am keeping those organs, I'm going to throw out that bladder. I'll remove it, but I'm throwing it out just like the brain. Same with the kidneys, same with the pancreas, same with all of the other excess organs. And you guys, so good. The only organ we're keeping in the body is the heart. Now, that brings us to the very end of our last step, which is called desiccation. That basically means dried out. That means we have a body, water, that lives underneath our skin, okay? And we have to dry out that body the same way we can dry out grapes to make them become raisins. Guess what, guys? Raisins are just mummy grapes. Now, what we know is that the water comes out through our pores, and ancient Egyptians, no strangers to sweating. So what they do is they actually have this natural resource called natron, which kind of creates when bodies of water evaporate. So they pour this natron all over the body to pour out the last bit of water right through the pores. So this is the example of what we do with Mr. Penn. And Harold, what we did was we actually found out you can create your own natron. So if you guys wanted to do this at home, You can actually take 1 part table salt, 3 parts baking soda. So you could do this with the grapes to a raisin, or if you guys wanted to play with a fish, you could do that as well. But we made our own natron with salt and baking soda. You can see a little sample of it here to dry out Harold. And then we left Harold in a bag. He sat like this for 60 days, which is the same amount of time we would leave Mr. Penn to dry out. And then let's see our work. What do you guys think? Do you think we did a good job with Mr. Penn and Harold the fish? Do you think they look good? Oh, yes, I love it. No, Mr. Harold is not edible anymore, unfortunately. Now, so just so you guys can see, just so that we wrap up, I know that we're at our mark, Katie and Mally. Just so you guys can see, I like that you guys all think that we did a good job, even though it's like gross and a bit fishy. We now have to make sure everybody stays intact. So what we're going to do is use resin to go and wrap up the mummy to actually create a really, really preserved body. So the resin is kind of like candle wax. It keeps the skin on the bones, like you can see here on Harold. And then we wrap them up. So Harold, we actually used fresh linen. You can see here with Mr. Penn, we have the linen that's a little bit older, right? So it's not enough to keep Mr. Penn really, really protected. So we'll put around Mr. Penn, we actually put 25 layers of linen wrapping. This would allow us not just to physically protect him. Yes, people's lives were shorter long ago. This would give us an opportunity to spiritually protect him with amulets, some that we can make together in the future with a lesson about ancient Egypt. And the most important amulet is called the heart scarab, which is placed on the chest over the heart that remains in the body to make sure that we most definitely can pass that final test. What you want is for your heart that's removed by the gods to weigh evenly with the feather of truth, which is the marker of your good and bad deeds when your soul is tested. If it weighs evenly, that means Osiris is opening up that door. If it's too heavy, that means maybe you weren't the best person living on earth, so it was in fact thrown to the devourer. Her name is Amut. She's made of the 3 scariest animals in all of ancient Egypt: the head of a crocodile, the body of a lion, and the bottom of a hippopotamus. I'm sure that none of you guys would have that problem, but ancient Egyptians, they definitely used this heart scarab kind of as an insurance policy to make sure they could always pass the test and never meet the fate of Amut. So, hippos are actually they look really cute, but they're really scary and dangerous. So if it's okay, Katie and Mally, is it okay if we take maybe 2 questions or a couple questions?
Absolutely. Katie's gone over to the next session so that it won't, they're late anyway. So Miss Allison, do you want to stop sharing your screen and then the students will see you? So we can answer questions for a couple more minutes. So one question is, why do people in Egypt in ancient times, why didn't they live as long?
So that's a great question. The reason that we find, and it's not just ancient Egyptians, right? It's across ancient worlds. What we find is that they don't have the same set of science that we do today. So their health practices like hygiene, we're all talking about hand washing. People didn't even know that that was a really important tool until the 1830s. So the idea of hygiene, the way that we're able to use the world around us and make our food, our drink, and address medical needs, that gives us the benefit of having a longer life expectancy.
Awesome. And that was a really interesting question from Ivory. Why was the mummy maker wearing a cheetah skin?
So great question. So since not everybody could read and write, and this was a set of beliefs that kind of evolved over time, what we find out is that people would use different symbols to kind of show their authority. So for the mummy maker, they would always have their hair in that special kind of fashion, and then that pelt, this is something that would signify their authority to others that maybe don't know how to read or write, or kind of as like a priestly garb. And also, I think that fur probably were really helpful. This is just my feelings. Are probably really helpful in getting your hands kind of wipe them off as you're moving through this really dirty task of embalming.
Very cool. And we'll just take one more question because we are going to have more sessions with Miss Allison where we're going to have lots of questions. We should maybe just book one with ask an ancient Egyptologist, like an expert. But Tegan would like to know, why were women mummified as well?
Great question. So this was actually something at first that started for kind of the highest classes, those that felt like really connected to the gods, for example, the pharaohs. So in those cases, you would definitely see the women that were pharaohs kind of treated in the same way, and their families as well. Love was a very big deal in ancient Egyptian society. But I would also say that by the end of the ancient Egyptian civilization, this was practiced across classes and genders. So however, and all the things you would need to completely mummify, that would be something that would definitely kind of change based on what you were able to afford. But women most definitely were mummified with the same respects. Great question.
That's amazing. So great questions, guys. So what we're going to do, we have to stop because we have somebody waiting in sharks, and I think people are going to want to jump to sharks.
Absolutely. I love it. Moat's the best.
Well, you're the best, but Moat is tomorrow with baby sharks. So maybe Savannah, your daughter, is it Savannah? No.
Yes, yeah. Sienna. We're signing up now. We finally just got her stuff all done. But
okay.
If anybody has questions, please send me any emails. I'm happy to answer.
And if you want to send them through the website and send them to me, and I can send them to Miss Allison, and I will email the answers back, or I can connect you guys. But we have 2 or 3 more sessions booked with Miss Allison, one on amulets, one on hieroglyphs, and we're thinking of other ones too. So we're going to see her lots more. That was great, Miss Allison. We love you, and be safe with your daughter, and we'll see you guys later.
Thanks. You guys be safe too. I hope it was all fun. Thank you so much. Miss you guys and can't wait to see you again.
Okay, we'll see you guys. Bye. And see some of you in sharks. We'll hop over by the website.
Yes. Go see sharks, guys. See you later.